You're listening to WCOM LP 103.5 FM Carborough and Chapel Hill. It's a Tuesday, it's 5 o'clock, and that only means one thing. It's time for another round of Snarky Faith with your host, Stuart Deloney. This is a space where we irreverently wrestle through life, culture, and spirituality, all with our heads in the clouds, our tongues in our cheeks, our hearts in our sleeves, and our feet on the ground. At Snarky Faith, the questions or even the answers are never the point. It's all about the conversation. So here's your host, Stuart Deloney.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to another round of Snarky Faith Radio. I'm your host, Stuart Deloney. Joining me as always is my trusty co-host, Ben Triplett. Ben, how does it feel? Because this is 2 shows in a row that we've both had to slum it with really, really crappy coffee.
Slumming it again.
It is.
You just want to like air our dirty laundry.
Well, not all of our dirty laundry. That was my clink of the nasty cup that I keep drinking just to keep myself alert and moving. This is like, I would call this is akin to gas station or church coffee.
It's like tying a chicken to a flagpole. It's just, I mean, chickens are really please. Like glorious creatures that just need their, freedom. And
yes, and flagpoles suck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they don't have tongues. So I was thinking the Christmas Story.
Well, that's what I was assuming that. Yeah, I thought this is where you're going with it, and I was trying to think now: do chickens have tongues or not? I've owned chickens. You own chickens.
Are we even like we're just 2 minutes into the show, and I have gotten us way off.
Instead of a rabbit, it's a chicken trail.
It's a chicken trail.
I
love my chickens though.
So, can you please tell us your chickens' names? Which I think is amazing. Just go ahead and share.
We had 4. 2 of them died, which is very, very sad.
Let's not speak of the dead, speak of the living.
Yeah. But Billy and Ella, they were named after jazz singers. And our recent 3, because they were a little more aggressive with each other, and it was very interesting to see how they were kind of socializing, if you can call it that, together.
The pecking order establishment?
Yeah, and just they were much more... They were more affirming of their presence with one another than our first chickens. So instead of jazz, we went more with rap. So they are
affirming of their presence to you or to the other chickens?
To the other chickens.
Okay.
No, they're scared of us.
Okay.
They love us now, but they were scared of us. Rizza, Jizza, and Suge Knight. Suge Knight she's our buff. And when we first got them, she would just go around like pecking. I mean, she's the smallest one in there. Sure. Suge Knight's pretty big. So if people don't know anything about rap, then I've just bored you for the last 2 minutes.
It's okay. You made it interesting.
Just Google Suge Knight. He's a very interesting and sad person.
But uplifting as a chicken.
That's true. Our Suge Knight is sweet and lovely, and yes, we love her very much.
And we'll make food from her body, which the original Suge Knight did not.
I mean, that's true. I don't know if the actual Suge Knight lays eggs, but yeah. I mean, I'm excited about the eggs, but honestly, at first I was fairly complacent about chickens, but I have grown to just like adore chickens. I never ever thought that I would love chickens as much as I do.
That's a beautiful thing.
They bring me so much joy.
It is.
I know. So much fun.
And you guys are your I guess homesteading nature has been like pushing in on our homesteading nature. Like our kids like are begging for chickens again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Y'all were the originators of.
Sure, it's all good. I'm very okay with disappointing my children generally in life. So it's become like a pastime of mine. As a dad, you just learn to say no.
Yeah.
Or no, what's even more cruel, you'd be like, they'll ask you for something, I'll be like, well, let me think about it. No. But it's just that moment that ends up crushing their souls in small ways.
Give them that little like pocket of hope to be able to stomp on.
Yeah.
It's like handing a child an ice cream cone and then like smacking it out of their hands.
Yeah, that would be, I wouldn't want to waste the ice cream.
Sarcasm.
Thank you.
I'm just going to make sure.
No, I was assuming you just hang out at parks and do that to kids all the time. Or you just follow behind like the ice cream man and like.
Well, the sarcasm was for you. That was mine. Was an analogy.
Oh, okay. Yours was. Oh, it wasn't like you're not. This wasn't like personal testimony time.
No.
Okay.
I just snuck another analogy. I mean,
gotcha.
that's like 5 minutes in, and
you are.
analogies.
It's record breaking. Guinness World.
I feel pretty good
stuff.
about myself.
I don't even
right
know
now.
what I'm saying. Yeah. So talking about this that has had nothing to do with what we started off with, but
I don't know. Smacking ice cream cones out of children's hands
would be something Trump would do.
I think so.
Yeah.
I could see
And then
that
blame
feasibly.
them for not having a tighter grip
Yeah.
on their cone.
You loser.
Yeah.
You don't deserve that ice cream. You're not classy enough for ice cream.
Oh, so this show and
Always make him sound like Tony Soprano.
you do a little bit, yeah. But yours is better than mine. I'm not really.
I don't think Trump is as sweaty as James Gandolfini was. I'm sorry. We can keep going.
I don't know. I think he wears far more makeup than James Gandolfini did. So
That's
I mean,
true.
you know, he may have some like foundation that kind of, or he has people that
And
probably
he
just.
has more fake hair than James Gandolfini.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. What's his name? Boris, whatever. Like that is. I'm getting the name wrong, but like the guy that was supposed to be the presumptive prime minister in England. The guy that was like, he was the mayor of London. Have you not seen this guy? He looks
Not quite.
He looks like.
I know David Cameron's.
Oh, I know he's gone, but it was the next guy. He looks like a low rent version of Trump.
Oh.
You know, like how typically, like we in America, we steal shows from the BBC, rework them, and make them worse.
Make them a little worse.
Yeah. This is
much
kind of
worse.
like the reverse of that, to where this guy's. I mean, he's you know, he's just as classy in a non-classy way. But he said he wasn't going to
He's like
pursue
gas
being.
station coffee.
There we go. There we go. Is this kind of like? Are we drinking like Brexit coffee?
Yes.
It's like it's the bitter pill that we're swallowing now, and that we wish we hadn't have done.
Exactly.
In it. So
nice.
Yeah. Poor British people.
Yeah. We are going to talk about Trump today, though. That's why. Bringing in Trump.
Bringing in Trump. Okay.
That wasn't a drive-by.
No, it wasn't. And
Trump
so this again is like reason 101 that once fascism takes over in America and Trump becomes our emperor, that we will be put to death at some point. I mean, we're like
dictator.
Yeah, it will. I mean, it'll take over, but luckily enough, we're pretty much small fish. So I think it'll just probably be having our like toenails pulled off or something, and then I don't know. I mean, I don't think we're like this show's not firing squad worthy, but we'll be on some sort of a radar. Of
maybe like Rambo 2, where we get thrown on a bed springs with a car battery attached to them or something like that.
All that fun stuff.
That
like
one was
that
for
too.
Kelly.
That was.
As long as I don't get
that was
like
like
a heated knife.
That was like a love letter that you were throwing out. Yeah,
exactly.
Or like a Lethal Weapon where I think they do the car battery. Car battery to the nipples.
To the nipples.
Yeah. Which is really just a fun Saturday night.
Yeah, and that's a little more classy than bed springs. So
I don't know. You know, it's all fun. So either way, so this is just we're rambling down the road towards sarcastic hell for when Trump takes over and turns into Kim Jong-un and has us tortured and censored. But actually, that would be an accomplishment if he actually ever knew that we existed. So you know, life goals.
True.
You know, torture would be one of those things that are like, hey, at least someone heard the show at some point. So torture, not fun, but we were noticed. Yay. So, okay, this comes from The Atlantic, and it's been an interesting week in the world of Trump as we move forward. And it's an article entitled Just Another Sinner, Born Again. By Lincoln Mullen. And really this comes on the heels of Trump having, I don't know, it was like he had like an evangelical summit of kind of who's who that he brought together of folks.
Ooh.
It was, you know,
That's intriguing.
Falwell Jr., Dobson, Michelle Bachmann.
Do you think they pumped in Snarky Faith in the like antechamber of this?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Just to get them pumped up, to get them angry.
It was. They were listening to the show to get them kind of that negative arousement that they have.
It's like listening to Metallica before you go out and play football.
Yeah. Or listening to certain pop music before you use the bathroom. I don't know.
I like that one better.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm ready to go.
It's like a laxative.
So, yeah, and so he kind of had his think tank. It was a closed door session. Franklin Graham did not directly say that he was endorsing him quite yet, but said he was on the road to
Quite
this.
yet.
Quite yet. Because he's got to milk these. He's got to milk this over Facebook because, there's not a bunch of people that are like banging down the door to like get Franklin Graham's opinion on anything because he offers it for free all the time. Because, hate speech isn't dime a dozen. You've got to somehow spread it out.
Yeah.
It's like putting manure in the fields.
You got to dress it up.
Well, it is because, like
lipstick on a pig.
If you have, was that
Sorry.
It sounded very Sarah
Keep
Palin.
going.
That was very Sarah Palin.
It was a little too southern.
And no, but it is like if you've ever seen, like I grew up, I lived a few years in Kentucky, which again, I'm exposing my quasi Southern roots, huh?
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I lived.
Is that why you're trashing my Southern heritage?
No, I mean I have
Questioning whether I was actually from the country.
Oh, I have enough Southern in me that's just sprinkled around. It's just kind of I have lots of family in like Southern Louisiana, which is a whole other area of the South.
That's totally different.
And so I grew up in Atlanta, have lived in Kentucky for some formative years. But we live in a neighborhood, and behind where we were was like cow pastures. Mm-hmm. So it was always fun as a kid to kind of like run around out there, like in cow pastures. But you have cow pasture, you always have like cow flop.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sure.
But it's a huge difference between saying like I'm spreading manure on the fields besides just having bits of cow flop. Like one of them is like productive. And the other one is just kind of like, it's there. Yeah. Which is kind of like Franklin Graham right there. I think his like goal in life needs to be to spread the manure out a little bit more so it's productive as opposed to just laying big cow flops everywhere. We're trying to work on analogies. That really wasn't very good. I'm sorry.
I don't know. That was pretty, you put a lot of thought into that, I can tell.
I actually did.
That was pretty good.
That was kind of stream of consciousness cow flop conversation. So if anyone ever wants to have, if it's middle school humor, it's really stream of consciousness. It comes naturally for me. If it's higher brow, not so much. No, but so what had happened was, and so he has because again, if you would have said this 5 years ago that Trump was rallying a bunch of evangelical leaders to be part of a think tank group, which is funny, like to have a think tank group, you actually need to have thinkers, not just tank.
Oh.
Does that make sense? It's kind of like, yeah. It's like
Burn.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just like on the playground where you got the mama jokes.
Yeah, yo mama. Well, it is. I feel like it's like giving people a box of like unsharpened pencils and telling them to take a test.
Ooh,
you know what I mean?
Nice.
It's not. Well,
I'm sorry, I've completely derailed the show by expecting there to be analogies.
It was a few shows back. You threw down the gauntlet of trying to have like wonderful random analogies. So I've got that
was fantastic.
I'm in the lost column right now. It's like 50-2 right now. So I'm playing catch up.
No, I don't know. You've laid down quite a few.
But it is like the idea of again having like a think tank with people that you already know what they're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
It was a who's who of televangelists. Enough said in that arena. Of folks, prosperity gospel folks. It was a smattering of folks that I think they showed up because no one had ever asked them to be part of a group that thinks.
It's like someone
and
likes
so we're
me.
like, wait a second, I'm smart. Yeah, I'll show up. Oh my gosh. Let's take a break from bilking money from people.
Yeah. I don't have to talk to sad saps.
No, I don't.
Talk to people like me.
Yeah. This makes me feel important.
Yeah.
Does it mean I have to wear pants? I don't know. But I'm not really sure what was going through their heads at this moment. But
if you're not behind the podium, yes.
Well done. No, so he has this think tank group of people that in the Christian world probably all ride on a short bus. Coming together to really, I know, and really what they're doing is he's trying to solidify. I'm sorry. My original point was 5 years ago, if you had all of these people coming together, like with Trump, you'd be like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Like, why? What? I don't understand any of this. But now that he is the presumptive Republican nominee and he's wanting to court the evangelical vote,
which needs something,
which I think mattered 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't feel like it matters as much, but we're still playing by the old rule book or whatever that is that they do. And so again, he's courting these folks and really wants to be able to get this vote from them because again, because what's his name? Falwell Jr., the Liberty dude, has already endorsed him. But he's also the one that's saying that people on campus need to all have concealed carry permits and take guns on campus because, again, that's my wife and I were talking about this. The whole logic of like the answer to any of these mass shootings we have is just
more guns.
More guns.
Yeah.
More guns leads to less violence.
That always works.
Because that worked in the Wild West.
Sarcasm.
Yeah.
Didn't it? No? Anyone? You were talking about The Wire on another show. Have you ever watched Deadwood? No, that, I will tell you that somehow more guns does not equal less violence.
Yeah. No.
It just
there
equals...
are deeper issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's how America's leaning towards today, that somehow we need, I don't know. But that's our whole military policy. More military, more aggression, more violence. We'll somehow silence the violence. It's bumper sticker worthy right there. I don't know. But no, so in the midst of this, I'm sorry. We are, my whole purpose behind this whole conversation that we had was, where do I begin with this? This started, I think I've mentioned this in the previous show, when I was having an insane conversation with somebody from my family about their love of Trump and about how he's God's chosen one. Mm-hmm. And, I probably threw up in my mouth several times, not because I was drinking crappy coffee, but just because of just the content of the conversation that was going. And we both, Ben, you and I have a radio show, so that would probably tell us that we're not for any lack of opinions. And so in this whole conversation, for me, actually keeping my mouth shut and going, oh, yeah, because I just wanted the conversation to end and I did not want to engage with it. But when I heard this repeated again, it was something I'd heard a family member say, and then I heard Franklin Graham saying this. Mm-hmm. I was like, I have to talk about it now. Yeah. And it was the fact that he is comparing.
If you talk about it, they win.
Donald. Oh, really?
No, I'm just.
Okay.
Go for it.
I was like, thanks for listening to the show. It's been a great one, and we will catch you again next time with. No, but Franklin Graham coming out after this whole thing, first of all, kind of being like the little, how do I not be dirty? Evangelical tease that he is,
That's good.
Yeah,
that's classy.
Okay. Cross tease. I don't know. I'm trying to not use our HBO language here, but that he was just kind of like, well, it was a good first date. We only got to first base, but we'll see where it goes. He's courting the Don on this, or maybe Little Don, and depending on which one we're talking about. But but in the midst of this, referring to him, and this is what begins to get me. If you listen to the show for any period of time, one of our goals, and I've been saying this a lot lately, I think just to remind ourselves and you, the dear listeners, that one of the things we like to talk about here on a show called Snarky Faith is the fact that we are wanting to add some sort of a sanity to the insanity that has become American Christianity in the midst of all this. And so with Franklin Graham comparing Donald Trump, and he used these words, referring to him as a David or a Moses-like character, meaning that they were people that were rough around the edges, but were still called by God. And I think I just threw up again in my mouth. Yeah. And I'm not blaming the coffee again. But when I hear that kind of stuff, like on so many different levels, like I cringe, I feel sick, I feel dirty even saying those words. Because even let's just first of all, this statement, let's just talk about this theologically. Okay, Ben, not even opinion wise. Okay, so we can talk about the Moseses and the Davids, right? Say, hey, does this make sense? Kind of a thing. And so you begin to look at this and, okay, Moses, okay? Moses killed a dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he was abandoned by his parents. Picked up by basically the enemy, the worst household or, for people who don't know, Pharaoh is the archetype of what you don't want in the Bible.
So he would be the more Trump character in this because he made big buildings.
Trump would be Pharaoh, or Pharaoh would be Trump. Yeah. Trump would be Pharaoh.
Okay.
Yes, in my opinion.
Hard heart.
Yes.
Very classy.
Yep. Who is God?
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, you get Moses coming up to Pharaoh and saying, da 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 da. The Lord said da 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 da, and Pharaoh is always like, who is this person you're talking about? Because the Egyptians believed that Pharaoh was God. So I could totally see Trump doing that.
Well, and the whole plagues, I mean, wasn't he essentially just trying to tell Moses you're fired?
Yeah, exactly.
Over and
Get
over
out of here,
again.
you're fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in every stereotypical Hollywood representation of the Pharaoh's always bald.
Ah,
and has lots of makeup on.
Yeah. Wow.
which would be very Trumpish.
We were really onto something here.
And if they were like, well, they worship cats, so maybe that's a cat that's on his head, like Trump's. I don't know. Like
Do you think Trump is apocalypse?
Like a Persian?
Maybe. Trump could be the mutant apocalypse trying to...
He doesn't have hair either.
Clear the world.
Yeah. And he does have a weird skin color that doesn't seem natural.
Lots of makeup.
He is henchman.
Yeah.
And has lots of power. I don't know.
I think we may be onto something.
Okay. So yeah, apocalypse, Pharaoh, all this stuff. Okay, so story of Moses, genocide happening with the Hebrew people, killing babies. Moses gets taken in by the Pharaoh through some trick nature, of his family. Raised with Pharaoh, but is very much a Hebrew person in the midst of this. And eventually
he sees one of the Hebrew slaves being beaten and just goes off his rocker and like kills an
Egyptian guard. Yep.
Yeah, which is basically just turning against the house that within which he grew. But yeah, I mean, it's also murder.
That too.
So he runs away.
To the
wilderness
and lives on his own. Well, I mean, he runs away. He's essentially kind of exiled for about 40 years.
Yeah,
the Old Testament, like when they would say 40 years, it's kind of a long time.
Yeah,
kind of
for a while.
Yeah, so he's out about 40 years, however you interpret that, before he encounters God, aka burning bush.
Right.
Then go save people type of a situation. This is kind of like the little neat Sunday school version we're giving you, but I mean he spends 40 years being cultivated. Like one. Had a weird childhood, was raised, in lots of very lavish surroundings, but then has to go. I'm a shepherd kind of a thing too with his father-in-law, future father-in-law.
And also, like I think a big piece of this too is he had a speech impediment.
That too,
or a speech impairment, and needed someone else to talk for him. I mean, there's a lot to him,
which would help Trump.
Yeah, probably.
We could have a translator.
Right.
To take the New York out of what he's saying.
Yeah.
No. But so yes, and so before he's even really usable by God in the story, he goes through much stuff, many things that would probably lead to a humbling process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Before he delivers people. So first of all, like referring to him as a Moses type character.
I'll say probably the least Trumpish thing about Moses is that a lot of times he wants to just not lead.
Yes.
He's just like, I can't do this. I mean, even on he comes down with the tablets and he sees what's going on and he just slams them. He's like, I can't do this. I can never see Trump. It's like, I'm going to do this. Like you are going to have me as your leader, which again is much more like a Pharaoh, I think, than a Moses.
Okay, so wait, hold it. Let me press pause on this. This is I actually left out one key plot detail to this whole story with these evangelical leaders was the fact that James Dobson has been talking lately about that he knows for sure that Trump has accepted Christ.
Yeah.
Which is kind of just
a whole nother interesting conversation.
Which we will get to that, but that is again one of the things that lots of Christians get off on is that once they think famous people have become what you would call born again.
It's like, oh, he's a Christian?
Oh my gosh, I feel so much better about my faith now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, this is so interesting.
Okay, so just that is an aside for where we're going here. So again, comparing him to a Moses from a person that claims to have deep Christian roots. Thank you, Dobson. Thank you, Franklin Graham.
Yeah. Have you
read
the Bible?
These are kind of heavy hitters, especially of the Jewish faith. I would love to think about how folks how Jewish folks would respond to that. Moses, the one that brought about the law that brought them out of slavery, not brought them into slavery.
Do you even think they would listen to what James Dobson is saying?
No. But I'm just even thinking of being able to. You're right. You're absolutely right. But but even being able to equate one of the main founders of your faith. He's pretty much like Trump, right?
Franklin Graham, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's the one that said that.
No, yeah. Dobson is the one that I know for sure that he's accepted Christ.
A Christian. Yeah.
Because apparently there's a litmus test. That you somehow use a black light on people and you can see and they shine a different color and I don't know.
Their blood type changes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's catching on. It's obvious. I mean,
once you become a Christian, you start secreting a certain type of hormone and you can test that.
Oh, absolutely.
like pee on a strip.
Yeah.
Sarcasm.
I mean, it definitely, for these kind of folks, it does somehow involve piss somehow. I don't know. But I mean, it's, yeah. So yay, I know for sure that he's done this, which is like saying, I don't even have a good analogy for that. I mean, it's ludicrous that ends up being,
I think of an analogy for that one.
I don't know. I mean, it's, like saying, I never mind. Okay, so that one. But secondarily, then beginning comparing to Moses, and we haven't even gotten to David yet. But I hear this, and I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, like these are like the worst Sunday school analogies I've ever heard of that you're trying to compare. Because again,
it's like smoking a cigarette and saying you're Keith Richards. Maybe? No.
I don't know.
Not a good one.
Well,
we'll give it a little more time.
Sure.
Okay. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. No. But within this, like just being able, like, it makes no sense. But again, it ends up being this like Christian propaganda thing that if you can equate him to this, that, or the other. And what they're trying to say is they're trying to make Trump palatable to the Christian base.
Right.
So if you can pull out like a few of the heavy hitters and compare your guy to them, then, again, it'll make Christians feel warm and fuzzy. Again, like what we had seen last go around with like Mitt Romney, which that was a beautiful amount of hypocrisy to where in any other case, evangelical Christians would always say that Mormons were a cult.
Yeah.
Like 100% of the time.
Right.
Now, if he becomes a presumptive nominee to run against Obama, they're now okay.
Right.
But only for the period that he was running.
It's like cognitive dissonance. Have you ever seen that episode of Arrested Development where Tobias and I'm sure you have, and Lindsay are like, basically they're getting ready to separate and they're like, well, we're going to do like the swinging thing for a little while. We're going to like date outside.
Yeah.
But stay together. And I think Tobias is like, that never works. Like, I think he was like a psychiatrist. He's like, that never works for anyone.
He was an analyst and a therapist. Remember, he was
Yes, I do remember that. He's like, that never works for anyone, but it might just work for us.
Yes.
That's like the phrase that's popping up in my head when you're talking about these things.
You're
like,
absolutely right with that.
We hate all Mormons, but for this one time, we're just going to accept this.
Yes.
It's like, people like Donald Trump make us sick, but maybe we could accept it for, if he's going to be president.
Because, isn't Republican and Christian the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
cognitive. Yes. Of people have like hammered that square peg in the round hole for so long that
Republican means born again, which again, we will unpack that whole thing in a little bit.
Right.
But, which is a whole nother loaded thing. But then secondarily getting to this, let's talk about David. King David from the Bible.
Yeah.
Again, heavy hitter in the Bible. Someone that God refers to as a man after his own heart. David had rough edges as well.
Yeah.
Did good stuff, did bad stuff. But again, was a person that when we look at his story, there was a lot of humbling experiences that you see that God used to cultivate in his life.
Well, I'm thinking of when he has the child with
Bathsheba,
and then it dies, and he like mourns for a few days. Just like straight taking the entire day, and they're like, "Dude, you're the king. Like, you need to king for a while." And he's like, "No, I'm mourning this dead child." I could never see Trump doing something like that. More, it would be like after that third day when David's like, "Okay, the mourning's done."
Yeah.
And he just goes on about his business. I can see Trump doing that like immediately. It's like, it's done.
It's done. Can you bring?
It's over.
Can you get another girl to shower naked on top of the building so I can go and take her again and have her husband killed?
Exactly.
Let's do it. This was fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
You're better at Trump impressions. I'm sorry, but no. But again,
or worse.
But again, it was this person that there was consequences, there was toughness, there was kind of cultivation of character, there was all these other kind of things. And so to compare him to David, to King David, again, man after God's own heart. Like, I see no basis for any of these things. Like, you might as well have said, he's like Mr. Rogers, or he's like Bob Ross, or he's like Prince. It's just like name random people that don't associate, but we'll just say it anyways.
Yeah, and I think where it comes in, and I know that this is where this is coming from, is you're starting with the assumption that we have to accept him somehow.
Yeah.
And
sell it.
And so that's your starting point. That's like your assumption. And then you can make those jumps. And the jumps are, well, there were other people in the Bible that had some like iffy stuff, but but we accept them, so we'll accept him. But you're like, in making that jump, you're also leaving out like 95% of the story or the rationale.
Which is crazy because these guys, like, okay, again, you don't have to have gone through seminary to know the story of Moses, to know the story of David.
Right, yeah.
Like we're talking like Sunday school, little kids level understanding of the story. That is like, we're hearing these people comparing Trump to this. You're just kind of like, wait, like, do you actually know the story? Like, are we talking about the same? Like, maybe there was a different dude named David and a different dude named Moses in the Bible that we just missed.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know. But when we hear that, like, what happens, and this is the insidious nature of this whole thing that's beginning to happen, because it is a spin machine that is happening between Dobson, Franklin Graham, and all these other insert word for them. Because I will, My creativity was leaving me, and I only had words I can't say on the air going through my head.
Charlatans.
There you go. That seems very palatable for the FCC. But what begins to happen is, see, here's how it works. Here's the strategy. If you label somebody as he accepted Christ, he's born again, what happens then is it's like you put on a bulletproof vest for them for a time period. Because if he's kind of a baby coming into the faith, we will ignore all of these things because we're so excited that he accepted Jesus and his life is so much changed and he's so different, but he's not. And
I think that brings up, this is getting a little bit away from Donald Trump, but I think in this other article that you pulled up about it's called Just Another Sinner Born Again by Lincoln Mullen, the idea of born again. And I think it is such an interesting idea because, it's pulling from John 3, right?
You're talking about Nicodemus?
Yeah, so Jesus is talking to Nicodemus under the cover of night, which I think is also an interesting detail.
Who was a religious leader at the time that comes to Jesus in the cloak of night to ask him questions because he doesn't want to be seen with him.
Right, and Jesus, and this happens, I'm reading through the book of John right now, the Gospel of John, and I don't get why Christians, evangelical Christians, fixate on this book because it is so flippin' confusing. It is so confusing.
Says a guy who's been through seminary. Just wanted to have that out there. Yeah, it's not that we're like,
And I'm not like tooting my own horn. Like I can read Greek. Yeah. Like I'm reading this, trying to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And I have no idea sometimes what's going on. And that's not to say there's nothing to get out of it, but it's interesting how evangelical Christians, I've found, like in the traditions, kind of the traditions that I came up in, pull out like, John 3:16.
Sure.
And this sort of like born again comes out of that same chapter. They pull these like things out of John, which I guess on their own, they do have their own logic within evangelical Christianity.
Sure.
But when you go back to the text and see what Jesus is talking about, it confuses Nicodemus because he's like, so I have to like go back inside of my mother's womb and come back out. So it should be kind of a mystery as to what he's saying.
So context-wise, the original question was kind of like, how do we enter heaven? Like, how do we walk in the way of God? And Jesus says you need to be born again. And Nicodemus is like, say what? You know?
But then the evangelical Christianity has like pulled this phrase out and turned it into.
Thanks, Tim Tebow.
Well, I shouldn't say turned it into. I don't know if it was that willing. I mean, it definitely comes from a tradition of. I actually read a while ago.
Burn. No, I'm sorry.
Well, that is, I guess, in there somewhere, but
it's more
like Jonathan Edwards, sort of like Jonathan Edwards Calvinist movement, where it has to do with this sort of like moment that you could point to as evidence. So this is coming out of a world where it was really important to have like evidence and experience, and it's very empirical. And so Jonathan Edwards is like living in the midst of these revivals, and you have like all these people sort of having this experience of God or whatever. And they kind of point to that moment.
The conversion experience moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the article, it talks about like Paul getting knocked off the horse. And so that's another, I guess, little piece for people to point to and say, this is how it happens.
Can we just like from now on just assume that Calvinism means like the belief of Calvin and Hobbes?
Okay.
Would that be good?
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me than actually.
It didn't occur to me until I was like in my 20s, that Calvin and Hobbes, I don't think that these thinkers are actually in there, but they're named after John Calvin and Thomas Hobbes.
Oh, is it really?
I don't think I ever
I didn't know.
Picked up on that, because I don't know if the actual thought is in there, but
okay.
I thought that was interesting.
But I like it.
Yeah.
That's that. So from now on, Calvinism is about the belief and love of Calvin and Hobbes.
Mm-hmm. But I think what's interesting in this, when you get to that kind of idea of born again, I mean, it literally is fixating on one moment, maybe like a few seconds or minutes in your life.
Will you prayed a prayer?
Yeah. And felt something.
Which isn't biblical.
And no. It's
don't tell anybody.
Sort of made up.
Yep.
But that moment becomes everything. I mean, that is, it's you like, I always think of it as getting married. That, once you get married, you sign the marriage certificate and stick it up on the shelf. If that's all you're doing, if that's all you have, or a bunch of photos and like a wedding book, then you're going to have a terrible relationship with your partner or whoever. You have to nurture it. It's like a daily thing.
So has Trump had like 3 conversion experiences, if we're going with your analogy? I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Keep going.
And,
that was judgmental. Stop. So.
No, but and not to discount, that people do maybe feel things or have like really important moments.
Sure.
But when you fixate on that, it's unhealthy. And I think that's what is interesting to me about this idea of born again is in kind of the evangelical churches that I've, from my childhood, that's been there. It's like there's always this question of what happens after born again.
Yeah.
Like what fills the space in between? Do you like grow? And what does that mean? Does that mean that
we don't like discipleship? So no,
you're like a better Christian, or if you start like, if you do something wrong, then you're not a Christian or you're a worse Christian. Mm-hmm. And people have like all kinds of ways of categorizing those sorts of things. And it gets very like weird theologically.
Well, I mean, it's like, again, we've got like, which is probably should be a whole nother show, like the Rio Olympics coming up. It would be like young Michael Phelps, like 15 or more years ago, being able to say, I want to be a swimmer.
Right.
And making that decision to be a swimmer and doing nothing else.
And saying, I'm a swimmer.
Yeah. I'm a swimmer, guys. Like, I'm a swimmer, but never practicing, never doing anything else. It's the equivalent of that.
Yeah. And it's
as opposed to,
what does that mean versus someone who actually tries and works at it?
I prayed a prayer, made a decision. I'm a swimmer. I'm good, man.
And that even speaks to this sort of a sister or brother like thought that what you do doesn't really matter because it's what God has done for you. Yeah. So this idea of like works righteousness that you can't like save yourself. And so when you put those two things together, which also don't make any sense, because if what you're doing is saying a prayer to get saved, you did something. So why is, it doesn't make sense to begin with.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, it's like, it's not about what you do. God's done it for you. Mm-hmm. And it just creates so many, at least for me, it created so many problems, created so many questions, and the pieces just don't hold up after a while.
And so we're saying this, not, I have no idea if the Don is a follower of Jesus or not.
The Don.
It doesn't matter to me either way. Like, the point of it is that this has become like a PR thing. And so this really has nothing to do with his soul, nothing to do with his necessarily journey within this, but it is kind of funny to be able to, that we've used this to try to sell this to other evangelical base, which I think that's one of the major problems with Christianity today is the fact that we focused on being born again. That has nothing to do about like a process or changing or a different way of living or living it into an ideal or the, discipleship is really what that word means. And it doesn't really happen anymore. We just assume it's kind of like bing, I'm done. I prayed a prayer. The afterlife is secure. And now I'll go to church just when I feel guilty.
Yeah.
You know,
or I'll just go to church every Sunday and nothing else changes.
Sure. And we've kind of, it just becomes a thing that we do. And, and then I guess I'm more aggrieved at just which is funny. This has very little to do with Donald. And this really has to do with a bunch of Christian leaders that carry sway and influence and are really turning this into a whole PR, which I would say manipulation piece to a lot of Christians that happen to listen and follow after these clowns, which is a Trump thing, right? Call them a bunch of clowns.
Clowns.
So, yeah.
Or Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. He used to say that a lot.
Ha ha ha, Kakarot. So, I wish I had Vegeta hair. But
that'd be awesome.
Which, for those of you that don't know that we're saying Dragon Ball stuff, saying Vegeta's name also sounds like you're saying something else.
Yeah.
So
it's a name.
It's a name.
Dragon Ball Z.
We're not actually being dirty in the midst of this. But but when we if we're gonna sit and think through, if we're trying to use a situation like biblically speaking that would probably speak to this thing that's going on right now, I would think what in my mind reminds me of like Jesus and the rich young ruler.
Mm-hmm.
Where this guy comes and approaches Jesus and says, again, it's a very Nicodemus kind of a situation. It's in a different light where he's kind of like, what must I do to kind of inherit the kingdom? I'm probably getting a little bit wrong, but it's the gist of it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but I've done this.
To have eternal life.
I've followed every rule out there.
Right.
I've done everything, and it's been all it's been classy. I've done it all. It's been wonderful and great. And then he's really coming and throwing this false resume to Jesus, being like, I'm already pretty much like perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then Jesus he's like, well, what more do I need to do? Because I've of course followed every law in the book, which again it's crazy to think that you could have, especially knowing like the law structure the Jews had really to live.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus simply just tells him, well, fine. He's like, here's what you need to do. I need you to go sell everything, give to the poor, and then come follow me.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're talking about like,
and then the dude cries and goes away.
He does. He walks, and it says he walks away dejected. Yeah.
And then the Charlie Brown song plays.
No, but I feel like, if we're going to call out a situation, like I feel like, and again, I think that this story can get really misinterpreted by Christians a lot of ways, and like, oh, God doesn't want us to have nice things. God wants us to give everything up. But really what it was, I really feel like it was Jesus just seeing through a lot of the hypocrisy that this guy was offering him and being able to see really the condition of his heart where he was in the situation, essentially that his own God, his own idol was his money and his wealth and his power. Sound a little familiar in the situation,
yeah.
And, he says, fine, like, here's what you need to do. Like, again, you've put all these things before God. And these are the things that are preventing you from being able to see God or experience God. And then when Jesus kind of lays out the hard truth of the situation, the guy's like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That was great talking to you. I'm going to go back to my tower with a big T on it. I don't know. But I feel like that story speaks more volumes than being able to kind of say that what is like Trump is like the new orange messiah. Is where what I'm kind of like feel like they're laying out for him.
Orange?
Or have you seen his
his
skin?
spray tan?
Yeah, spray tan. I don't know. That's probably a bad one. Or the Oompa Loompa Messiah.
No, I like
know.
that.
Okay. We'll stick with Orange Messiah. But so when we do that, like what ends up happening is these leaders, and I guess my whole thing is they know better.
Uh-huh.
I would hope.
Right.
Like the Dobson and all these other people that have written books, that have milked the whole Christian money machine for years and have influence and everything else should know better than to play this game that they're doing.
And 5 years ago, they probably would have criticized him. And even now, if he were running for the Democratic ticket and said he was a Christian,
that's a really good point.
They would probably criticize him.
Well, even Trump now
he's not a real Christian.
Is calling out Hillary's faith, which is really funny because, no
worries.
Well, on top of it is this whole, which again is a game everybody plays. Which the whole thing is that Obama has said he's a Christian before. And I know the evangelicals like to say, no, he's a Muslim. No, he's this. No, he's it.
Right.
Like the fact that, again, because there is an official litmus test that you can get at Lifeway bookstores.
He just needs to take that.
It is. And you know, we can...
Sarcasm.
You know, we should sell one of these off the show. Make some money. Like just... the
Snarky faith test.
It is the Snarky faith test. Or you can just actually feel free to write us from our website, www.snarkyfaith.com. If you really want to know if someone's saved or not, we will do that. We will tell you. It doesn't take long. I have to get in the spirit and in the moment.
You should make an app.
And it is. And I may or may not use a magic 8-ball in the midst of it, figuring that out.
Which would probably be more accurate.
Or flip a coin. We could do that, or some other random. I don't know, but the whole thing, I really end up feeling like just ends up being a circus.
Mm-hmm.
And again, which is a drum we like to beat here on the show, has nothing to do with being a follower of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And I think the reason that we get pretty upset or passionate about it is it's very demeaning or belittling to people who actually want to experience this kind of stuff and who have tried to live in this, for years. And it just, it makes it feel very cheap to see people just sort of parade it out as this is a label. And this is not a new thing either. I mean,
no, it's not.
To sort of throw, Christianity or the church out on the table for political reasons has been around for a very, very, very long time.
But the Catholic Church has never done that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not once.
Sarcasm.
I know. Yeah.
So many all across the board. But at the same time, I think that's why we get so passionate about it is to see someone sort of throw it out there, and then I think for a lot of people, they see that and they say, this is a joke. Like if that guy is a Christian, I want nothing to do with that.
That's what I say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. I mean, even Christians, it's like, do I want to be a part of it?
It makes me question, like, are you guys talking about the same thing I'm talking about?
It really cheapens.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, but in many ways, and I know it makes me super judgmental, but I'm kind of like, I think we're on like it. Truth be told, like when I have like the Franklin Graham's, the Dobsons, all the other people, I'm kind of like, it's hard for me to feel like we're on the same team. Like, you know what I mean? Like the words you're using don't mean the same thing as the words I'm using.
Mm-hmm.
And if the words you're using are actually the way they're meant to be used, the fact that we'll say we love people by screaming at them and tearing them down, those kind of things. I'm like, I don't want to be on that team. Now, that tells me that I still feel like, again, Jesus isn't in the midst of that whole conversation with me being a judgmental idiot also, and him being somewhere else. But it ends up kind of tearing me up when I'm able to see that and experience that, and it makes me mad and frustrated.
When you're born, you're like given a name, and you have some, I guess, like capacities, and like there's a developmental trajectory, but you have to like live into that, and it happens over the course of time.
Yeah.
And when you're born, you start at a very sort of raw, like, I don't want to say like blank slate because we know that's not true, but
that's a Taylor Swift song.
Very unformed. Yeah. Blank space.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Why
Sorry.
should I know that?
You failed my test.
You tricked me.
I know.
But it's very unformed, and it has to grow and mature. And so I don't know. In some ways, to say that you're born again, I think I don't want to cheapen it. I think it's very much celebrated in the evangelical church because you have, like in the Baptist churches, especially, you have the like conversion time at the end of the service,
and baptism too,
like altar call and stuff like and the baptismal font is like up in the, or not font, but the pool or whatever they dunk you in is like center in the back.
Is that like Comic Sans? Is that the same thing as baptism? Keep going. Sorry.
So and it's such a big thing. But again, like I feel like people fixate on that and don't realize that when you're born, I mean it's a starting point, and you have no idea like what's going to come out of that.
Yeah.
And I think what's exciting is to know that that's like the starting point in a journey.
Yeah.
And everything I just described, I think has nothing to do with this like 60 whatever year old man that is running for president. I mean, do we really expect to see him? Maybe some people do. I don't know. Maybe some people genuinely think that they're going to see some sort of change out of him because he's quote unquote born again.
Well, I mean, I would hope so if that was true.
But I don't think so.
Well, I mean, let's look at this then, because again, which is what makes this hypocrisy even worse. So you have these leaders that are again leaning on the fact that he's somehow prayed a prayer and everything's changed, right? And it's different. But look at the things he stands for. You know, like xenophobia, fear of others, wanting to close our borders. You know, being against the immigrant, being against,
violence.
Well, he's not against violence.
Oh, or he's for violence.
Yeah, being for violence. I mean, all of the, like, most of the, well, let's see, let me think. My brain's hurting now, thinking this through. Like, would there be anything that he talks about? Would there be anything that he is standing for that you would say would even line up with the ways and the teachings of Jesus? And it's hurting my brain to figure this out.
I'm just...
That's
Sarcasm.
true. That's true. Isn't that what, Moses, you know...
Well,
and the burning bush, you fight. I don't know. So
I'm just thinking,
that's really
like,
bad. Sorry, that was really bad.
What would the world be like if people were just born and there was no like process or change after that? It would be a world full of babies.
If you think about it, I mean, Trump does act like he's a child, and that's kind of been a part of his trajectory. He is.
Yeah.
I mean, hand-wise, his hands are the size of baby hands. You know.
True.
And when babies are first born, their skin color is a little bit off until they start, breathing a little bit more, which could be his problem. You know,
interesting.
And maybe, I don't know.
Do you think he's a baby in like a robot suit? Maybe. Oh, or like Men in Black, where you have like that little like alien thing that's in the middle. Yeah, man, that would make way more sense. You know, or he kind of reminds. Oh God, what is it? It's I should know this. Krang?
Yes, from the
Ninja
Simpsons.
Turtles?
No, I'm saying no. Krang. What is it like the two aliens from the Simpsons?
Oh, Kodos and
Krang isn't?
It's something like
okay,
or Krang.
okay, yeah.
Kang.
But hell-bent on world domination.
Yeah.
Not caring about anybody else. Just that would fit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, but again, and feel free, dear listeners, to tell us if there are things that part of Trump's stance that would line up with Jesus. I would be really curious to hear.
Yeah.
I would love to hear feedback, and we will tell it on the air the next show, because I am totally fine if I am absolutely wrong on this. But I don't think I am.
But I just think, again, like, I feel like this is kind of a symptom or a sign of the deeper question of, like, what does born again mean?
Yeah.
And
would Jesus want to make America great again?
Why? Maybe so. I don't know.
Get us back to our xenophobic roots where we, have mass genocide and step over everybody.
Wow.
Keep going. I don't. Sorry, keep going. You had a better point than I did.
No, that's fine. I just think it would be interesting to think through just this idea of like fixation upon like one moment and having a certificate on your wall that like I'm born again because of this day. Like I can remember being in the Baptist church and writing in my Bible, like in the front, the day that I got baptized.
Yeah.
And it really is like a little certificate of like get out of hell free card.
It is.
Kind of thing.
Well, which circles back to Monopoly, which circles back to Trump.
I was making a Wire reference, but yeah,
okay.
Circle to Monopoly.
And Mr. Trump with that. I don't know. No, but you're right. Like, well, even think about this. And I don't know, we've been on an analogy tear, but like, just the fact that you graduated college is an accomplishment, but it also means nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like unless you do something with that diploma, or whether it's from high school or not, like unless you do something with it, just you going around showing this to people does nothing for you.
Well, I can definitely tell you that in kind of going through
kind of
occupational
like is it kind of like our seminary degrees?
Yeah, there's definitely.
I'm kidding. Yeah, well,
no, I think there's truth in that, and in occupational therapy. It's been reading out of books but I mean now that I'm in an internship, I can just see that so much of it comes from doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that like builds a basis and gives you some like foundation. And I think it is the same in seminary. I mean, you can only do so much in the classroom, but then you got to go out and actually do. And it's in the doing and in that sort of like process of experiencing and making decisions and, failing and those sorts of things that you grow and get better.
And eventually become jaded and cynical and have a radio
show. And turn in on yourself.
Yeah.
Self-hatred.
Woohoo! Thank you, seminary, and thank you, debt. Okay, so I think we've driven this one into the ground pretty well.
Sure.
But we do love our new...
We're losers.
We love our new Orange Messiah. We'll coin that one. I don't know.
Sarcasm.
Yeah,
I don't know
okay.
if that needed to be in there or not.
No,
I'm just going to throw it in there.
It's all for good taste. So as we get to the end of this broadcast, just a reminder that you can catch us on podcast at www.snarkyfaith.com, and we will be on the air until Emperor Trump takes over and fires us all. I don't really know how that works, but it really, yeah. So we love you guys, our listeners. Thank you for listening to us. Reach out to us on Facebook, on Twitter. Just look up Snarky Faith. If you feel so inclined, hop over on iTunes and leave a review, as long as it's a good one. Right. But that is all we have
Sarcasm.
this week. And we will get you again next week. Thanks for listening. We're out of here.
WCOM is listener-supported community radio, and Snarky Faith is only possible through our sponsors. Aqueduct Conference Centre was established in 1978 as a peaceful destination for small group meetings, special events, conferences, retreats, and weddings. For more information, go to www.aqueductcc.com. We are also sponsored by Lumen. Lumen, a spiritual community of seekers, sojourners, question askers, doubters, and skeptics, is a collective of fellow travelers that embrace the truth that all life is sacred, hope is real, and tomorrow can be better than today. All are welcome. You can find more information at www.lumencommunities.com.